Hi, I'm Catherine Reid, host of the St. Paul Forum, and joining me today is Tracy Singleton, the owner of the Birchwood Cafe in South Minneapolis. Welcome, Tracy.
Hi, thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, I'm so glad you could join us. So tell me about, the Birchwood Cafe has been around for 18 years. You're celebrating your anniversary, I know. And tell us a little bit, though, let's go back and tell us what brought you into the world of food.
My first experience with what I consider good real food today was working for Lucia Watson at Lucia's restaurant.
Oh, okay.
So I worked at Lucia's for 5 years before I started the Birchwood Cafe. And that was
Lucia's is in
Lucia's
Uptown.
is in Uptown,
and
Minneapolis.
Also, she was really known as a pioneer
yes,
around.
she is one of the
real. I mean, her cookbook. Didn't she do a cookbook? Or
she does. Yep, yeah. She does have. She does have a cookbook, and I'd say she, Brenda Langton, and Lenny Russo are sort of
the three biggies.
The three people who started this whole buying local from farmers movement. And so that was my first experience with real food, food made from scratch, food that where you know the source. I distinctly remember answering the back door at Lucia's one day, and there was a woman standing there with two what I thought were garbage bags. And I said, can I help you? And she said, well, I'm here, I've got the salad greens. And she kind of held her hands up, and my thought was like, oh my gosh, this is so many different kinds of illegal that this woman's bringing salad greens in a garbage can through the back door. But it was one of Lucia's farmers. And that just, it was very transformational for me to get to work in a place where we got to see the people who were growing and producing the food coming in and out of the restaurant day to day, to see cooks who prepared from scratch ingredients. All the restaurants I'd worked in all the years before, food came in one big truck, either frozen in a bag or out of a box. What I've come to see, the purpose of food is to really, nourish ourselves. And for me, it's kind of nourishing. It nourishes my soul and nourishes my being when I come together with food. And with the Birchwood, especially looking back over the 18 years, we've been bringing people together around a certain kind of food. It's what we call good, real food. And community just happens when people have the opportunity to connect around food that they can themselves connect with. And two, it's about trust. We have relationships with over 40 small, independent, either farmers or food producers that we buy from, and we know them all very well. I consider them all friends, if not family. I've been to their farms. I know their farming practices. I know how they treat the animals. I know how they treat their farm workers, the people that work for them. And so people that come to the Birchwood also have the benefit of that trust and that relationship, even if they don't have time to experience it themselves. We have a quote up on our wall. It's a Zen meal prayer, and it's innumerable measures bring us this food. We should know how it comes to us. And so that's really what we're trying to get people to think about is all the different things that the food has to go through. And I think when you can connect with it on that level, it does taste differently. It tastes better, and you just feel better eating it.
A restaurant's not for the faint of heart. Tell us a little bit about what led you to that experience.
Birchwood has been there since 1920. It was originally founded as a dairy. There used to be surrounded by farmlands, and the farmers would bring their milk to the Birchwood. It was an actual creamery. They would make butter, packaged butter, bottle milk. They had Birchwood milk trucks they delivered throughout the neighborhood. So from the 20s to the 40s, it was a dairy. And in the 40s, when the bigger dairy companies were coming in, they converted to a little, ma-pa neighborhood grocery store, which was how it was functioning when I first came across it, which was in 1994. There was an article in the variety section of the Star Tribune that this couple was retiring, and so I went to go look at the building, and it's just sort of, hey, this would be a great, at the time we were thinking coffee shop. I think that was right around, I don't know if you remember Java Jack's in southwest Minneapolis by Lake Harriet. That was kind of the first sort of local independent coffee shop. But that was kind of the idea when I first went to look at the building, and there were about 30 other groups of people who were also interested in buying this business from the owners. Yeah, so it was.
So it was kind of competitive.
It was very competitive.
Oh my gosh, I vaguely remember that. I kind of remember hearing about that.
Yeah, the people who had run the Birchwood store, it was a couple, Cy and Dell. Cy's parents were the one that had founded the original dairy. They were the ones that lived in the house next door, which is the house that now my daughter Lily and I live in. It was very important to them that because the neighborhood had supported them their whole lives, they wanted to give back to the neighborhood, something that would, you know, support the neighborhood and be good for the community that way. So felt very fortunate that they chose the business plan that we had for the cafe, and very honored they let us use the name because they had already established a reputation, you know, with freshness, community. It was already a place where people would go for food, food that was sourced, you know, right there. And we just kind of wanted to keep those values and traditions alive, and kind of our incarnation of it was the restaurant.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And the whole idea for the Birchwood was, because if you remember, if you go back 18 years, there really weren't a lot of places where you could get the quality food, the type of ingredients at a Lucia's restaurant that wasn't a fine dining experience. So we wanted to have that quality food in a more casual, family-friendly, more everyday environment. So we didn't want it to be just for special occasion or fine dining.
And so you have that great experience of the taste and the quality of the food, but the atmosphere is very informal. You order at the counter more like you would at a coffee shop, and they bring you your plate when it's ready. So it's, I mean, we now have a lot of restaurants in that tradition.
Yes, thankfully.
But you were, a lot more. And I neglected to say, can you just tell us the intersection and the neighborhood that you're located in? You're very close to the river.
Yep,
but
just 4 blocks west of the river. We're on 25th Street, and in between 33rd and 34th Avenue in the Seward neighborhood.
It's Seward neighborhood. And of course, there's the great traditions now of Seward food with the Seward Co-op and all the other
yeah,
things
we've
that
got
have
some
sort of
great
followed.
food stuff happening. Yeah, there's a great new tea shop on Franklin. Chef Shack is opening a brick and mortar place in our neighborhood. Yeah, lots of great things on Lake Street and Franklin. Yeah.
Right. If you're just joining us, I'm talking with Tracy Singleton, the owner of the Birchwood Cafe, about her 18 years in the business and what's coming up next. So you tell us a little bit about, I know you have a relatively new chef, and there's been a lot of attention to how did all that transpire? What was that transition for the business?
Well, actually, our chef has been with us for almost 7 years.
Oh, is it 7 years?
Yeah,
Okay,
which is a restaurant business is a long time.
That is a long time. I don't know why I'm thinking it was
no,
new,
that's okay.
but I had something
Marshall's
that
been with us for a really long time, and it's been a great fit. He's really creative. He's just as passionate as I am on the sourcing and the knowing where the food comes from and having the relationships and going to the farms. He's very creative with, and you have to be, and to be a restaurant that wants to serve as much local food as you can in a state like Minnesota, where the conditions are such that, like, one year the season starts in March, you know, with 80 degrees, and then this past year we didn't have good growing conditions until late June. So, yeah, Marshall's fantastic.
You had to really think about what was going to be locally sourced and what would we actually have available, and sort of extended the winter season, if you will. And
he's the other great thing about Marshall is he's very collaborative and very very collaborative in terms of menu creation and inviting the whole kitchen team to participate and have ideas. I mean, I certainly have ideas, and we all work really, really well together to come up with the menu that we have at the Birchwood.
And I know you talked about your daughter, and you have been very involved in the movement around schools and food. And can you talk a little bit about that initiative, please?
Sure. My interest with the school started with the Seward Montessori School, which is just 4 blocks from the Birchwood. I've worked with them for I don't know how many years, 8 or 9 years. They have an organic vegetable garden that's kind of been in and out of, I guess, protection, depending on who the principal was or what was happening at the school. And now it's a thriving garden, and the kids at the school are using it as part of the programming. The different teachers are going out there and using the garden to teach lessons, so that's really exciting. And then recently, just this year, I worked with Bertrand Weber, who's the the director of culinary nutrition for Minneapolis Public Schools, to found the True Food Chef Council. And that is a collaboration of, I think there's 24 chefs in Minneapolis, chefs, restaurateurs, and caterers, and we all work together to try to raise awareness for all the positive changes that Bertrand has made in the Minneapolis Public Schools school lunches. He is sourcing locally. He is making more food from scratch, making healthier food. Last year we did sort of a pilot program where we gave him a recipe for one of our bean salads because the mandate came down from the USDA that they wanted more legumes in school food. So he's like, okay, well, how are we gonna get kids to eat more beans? So we shared some of our recipes with him. Then they kind of co-branded our salad onto the salad bars in the high schools that have salad bars. So that was really fun.
So it had your name on the
yeah, it was a Birchwood
salad.
salad, and we got great response from parents. To they said, oh, they get the flyers that the kids come home with, or to put up on the fridge for the school menu, and they said it just made them feel really good to see that Birchwood. It just kind of helped them. Helps overcome that notion that school food really isn't very good. Because
And I seem to remember that there was some. I think I follow you on Facebook, and I think I remember some in one of my feeds. I was seeing examples of here's what they offered today, and here's what was left over. I mean, there was some people were sort of showing how much did they actually eat of everything, and what was the balance. Because people were kind of trying to measure it and see if there was less being thrown out and more being eaten, and those kinds of things.
Yes.
And it seems like the results are pretty positive.
I think so. I think so. Just both last year and just this past year, October, for Food Day, we've gone into. Last year I went to my old high school, Washburn High School, and had lunch in the cafeteria with the kids and helped serve local turkey, local squash, local cabbage, and trying to introduce the kids to that. And then this year we went to the grade school down the street to Seward Montessori, where Marshall was trying to entice the kids to try kale. And so it was a successful experience. Especially, they really respond to chefs. For some reason, kids
they're fascinated by the personalities, and unfortunately they have relatively big personalities. Most of them, right?
Yep, and I don't know if it's all the TV chef
all
shows,
the cooking shows too.
Exactly.
I suppose it's just created such a following that it's advanced so significantly over the years you've been in business, for sure. So probably get some aspirations to them about what else they could do. So you're seeing a growth. Talk a little bit too about some of the kinds of initiatives that you've done around the community. Just locally in relationship to the cafe. I know you have artists always. Some of the shows have been some of my favorites. I love the way you hang your shows too. They always feel more intimate. Like when I'm sitting there, I like it that as a visual artist myself, I like it that they're not up above me. They're kind of in relationship to me, and I don't know if that's been an intentional choice.
Yeah, well, we want it to be, it's part of the environment. We feature local musicians at the Birchwood. We love to feature local art. It's just that community piece. It's just having more people, different ways that people can engage with us. Yeah, and if you, one thing that we do is it's over now, but during the growing season, we take people out to one of our farms. So we do monthly crop mobs out to Riverbend Farm. And that's probably been one of my favorite initiatives that we have. It's called the crop mob. Yeah. Now a traditional crop mob is I think the idea was conceived of for let's say a farmer needed some help constructing a fence or clearing a field for a day. It would, get a bunch of people. They'd all show up at the farm. They'd all help work and get the task done. And our version, we wanted to make it a little more family friendly, so we, jokingly call it Crop Mob Light. But we go out to Riverbend the last Saturday of the month from May through September, and we start the season with planting onions, and we end with harvesting squash. And we spend, 2.5 to 3 hours at the farm. And Farmer Greg Reynolds is always prepared for us, so he has the tools and instruction and whatever we're going to need to help him out that day. And people bring their kids, and I bring a picnic lunch, so we feed people. We'll have anywhere from, I think we've, 12 people at the smaller side up to 40 at a bigger size crop mob, and it's really fun. And I just think it's really great for me to, again, it's that sort of kind of sharing the experience that I had of getting to know my food, because you get a real hands-on experience. You get to see what it's like on an organic farm. You get to talk to an organic farmer and ask him any questions that you want. Greg is really great about showing people around, gives the kids tractor rides. It's really neat. And I know people seem to really appreciate it because some people come,
all the time.
all the time. It's like their family outing for the month.
Yeah. So you're at this 18 years, you've made the decision to expand the restaurant, or at least you're counting on the Kickstarter campaign helping you with that. I had the opportunity to hear you talk a little bit about the plans just because a mutual friend of ours before you launched it. What's gone into this thinking about the expansion?
Well, the expansion has been a long time coming. And I guess where we are today with it, with the decision to do a Kickstarter, it's, you talk about restaurants not being for the faint of heart, and when I, look back to 18 years ago, I was just at such a different place in my life. I wasn't really thinking much beyond, the end of the next week, and it was a different, had just a different risk assessment, I think, at the time, and now, older, hopefully wiser. I do have a 5-year-old daughter, so just thinking all these things into consideration, and the costs are so much more than they were when we first opened, and they're about 10 times more. So our Kickstarter we have a $100,000 goal for that, which I know is very ambitious, but that's the gap that we have with where we're at with what conventional financing, what the bank financing is giving us, and really what we need to make the Birchwood the restaurant that we want it to be.
Right. And, when you talk about conventional financing, again, I think we have to remember that the 5 years that we've just gone through with the contraction has had a huge effect on and all kinds of entrepreneurs' ability to finance themselves. Lenders pulled back on everything. It's been much harder. Anyone trying to buy a home realizes that their credit rating, their all the different factors, the price of the home, the stability of their job is going to make a difference. So clearly, conventional financing can be a challenge, I would guess.
Yeah, and they're looking at things like collateralization and what are your property tax values. And you look at where the Birchwood is located. I mean, we're in a residential neighborhood, and we had to go through an exhaustive, extensive process with the city of Minneapolis to be able to acquire the right zoning. We now have commercial zoning. And so to be investing the amount that we're talking about in a neighborhood, which I think is a very worthy investment. I mean, you could ask any one of the, almost 300 people that showed up to our neighborhood meeting in support of the Birchwood growing this way, they would agree. The bank looks at that as like, the property tax values of comparable buildings within the 2-block radius. Well, there are no comparable buildings.
You don't really have anything if you know the area.
And we do have, as you said, a very established track record, good credit history of always paying our vendors and things like that. But it is it's a very different climate for the banks. And my thought, I should say, with appealing to the community through a platform like Kickstarter is to invite the community to grow with us. Here's a way that people can literally put their money where their mouth is and put money behind something that they value, whether it's they value the food that we source, or they value our advocacy to get GMOs labeled, whether they appreciate that we're helping get better food in the schools. Maybe they met their husband at the Birchwood and they're thankful to us for that. So there's all these different kinds of things that a banker can recognize, but they don't show up on the bank's balance sheet, whereas community and crowdsourcing funding, people can give as little as $1 or as much as $10,000 on Kickstarter.
That's fantastic.
And then the way it works too is depending on what level you choose to give at, there's different rewards that you can choose.
Well, I did notice that. I took a look, and
you did?
Yes, absolutely. It's been fun to follow it since the launch. I've been, and you've had great. I happened to be at a concert where R.T. Ryback spoke earlier that day, and then of course he showed up on supporting you for your Kickstarter, and he came to your anniversary party. But yes, I mean, you've put a lot of thought into. I really recommend. I don't know how much research you did on Kickstarter campaigns, but all of the levels of ways that people can also get a reward for their investment seems pretty thoughtful and a lot of fun.
I hope so. I hope we've created some unique experiences and some sort of exclusive merchandise that kind of keepsake type of things that will be special for the people, for the backers who
Right.
choose to support
And
us
so
that
do you
way.
mind saying where you are today on this $100,000 goal, or did you
Well,
look
when I
before
looked,
you came?
I did. Of course, I did. We were almost we're very close to the 1/3 mark. So
You
we're
are.
almost to 33.
Almost to 33. That's great.
$33,000. Yeah.
And it's only been a few days,
it's only-
basically.
we started. Yeah, a little. Yeah, we've got 20 days to go.
20 more days to
Yeah.
go. So we will certainly put up your website and
Oh,
let
okay.
people find that on the experience. So as you think, obviously you have the next 20 days to make sure that this is successful. And are you thinking beyond that at this point? Or
Well, I have to be because, you know, there's a lot of Kickstarter being one of them. There's many balls in the air right now, and they all have to
it does involve physically expanding the
It does
restaurant. I
involve-
should just say
yeah,
that. Yeah.
It's a physical expansion. We're adding 1,400 square feet onto the south. Our contractor, our plans are finalized. We're almost through permitting with the city of Minneapolis, and our contractor is confident that he'll be ready to start construction on November 15th.
Oh, so this is going to turn around quickly.
Hopefully, we hope so. And yeah, and you know, I think going back to if I did a lot of research, I didn't, you know, I'm choosing, am being confident that we're going to make our goal, even though it
Start
is.
visualizing it.
Yes, exactly. I'm a big
The big
believer
100.
in visualization and what you put out, you also attract. So I'm focusing very positively on it, but I should say, and it's just been so amazing, the level of support that's, I guess I've just become aware of, and where on all these different levels that people do connect with the Birchwood. I mean, I can't tell you how many people are just coming up with me with their stories about how the Birchwood intersects with their lives or the meaning that it has for them. I mean, I had a woman who came up to me at the cafe the other day and told me, you know, when her mom passed away, she was at her mom's bedside at a care home in St. Paul. The first place she came right afterward was the Birchwood. She said, I needed a hug. I needed to feel a hug, you know, every part of
beautiful.
my body. And she came to the Birchwood and she sat and she planned out her mom's memorial service. And, you know, it's things like that, which, again, you go back to you can't really put a price on that. I mean,
And it really comes back to what the purpose of food is, which is to
comfort. It's
comfort,
to comfort
and to nourish
and to bring people together.
nourishing the spirit as well. So,
Yeah.
well, we wish you all the best,
Thank you.
both with the Kickstarter and with the future of the cafe. And thank you for sharing your story.
Well, thank you for having me.
That's all we have time for. Come join us again next week on the St. Paul Forum.